Where's the body?
It's out back.
Finally.
Where have you been?
The darker chapter.
My secret diary. Her page is missing.
Before Laura Palmer's murder.
Freak accident.
The killer will strike again. Who knows where or when?
Twin Peaks. Fire Walk With Me. Rated R. Starts Friday, August 28th at a theater near you.
At the time, the film was hated and was even booed at the Cannes Film Festival.
It wasn't received
kindly. No.
Yes.
They booed us at Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival.
So
Now, the film is regarded by many Twin Peaks fans and David Lynch fans to be a masterpiece due to its change of tone, uniqueness, and the incredible performance from Sheryl Lee. Now, I think the best way to watch/go into the movie was stated by the late Al Strobel.
Fire Walk With Me is hard to look at if you are not prepared to look at a piece of art. It's kind of like if you went into a gallery that was showing some extremely expressionistic works and you were expecting to see English landscapes.
Now, I will say, watching it at first, you literally have no idea what's going on. Now, this is, I think, mainly due to the fact people thought the movie would provide answers to the end of the second season, much like I did. Which is what happened with Lynch and Frost, with Frost wanting a direct sequel, and David wanting a prequel. Thus, Frost left the project, and I think the movie somewhat suffers for it. As to me, while I still love the film, it feels more like David's vision and not a collaborative effort, which is when the show is at its best, in my opinion. This is David Lynch on the film.
Why did you decide to make a prequel to Twin Peaks?
Because I sort of fell in love with the idea of seeing Laura Palmer walking and talking, and I loved the idea of visiting her in her last days.
Now, to be fair, the film had a lot going against it. The public weren't really fans anymore, a lot of the actors couldn't make it, like Sherilyn Fenn, Lara Finn Boyle, who wouldn't appear again, and Richard B. Mayer. Kel MacLachlan feared that he would be typecasted, so he only had 5 days to shoot. And the biggest thing was the film had to cut so many scenes, some of which would explain the more abstract scenes.
Because there was an awful lot cut out. The convenience store scene where I'm sitting at the table with Mike, that was a very huge scene. That really got cut to shreds. The scene that we did in the Red Room was a very long, intricate scene also that got cut to shreds.
The film went to the Cannes Film Festival, and also there's a thing that I haven't talked about, Japan's love of the series. The love Japan had for this was incredible. They had multiple adverts filmed, and a unique trailer for the movie.
No, listen. Diane, I have a strange hunch. Is the murder of Laura Palmer really the end, or just the beginning? In any case, I am absolutely certain that the key to the solution of this riddle is hidden within this film.
And the film did financially well in Japan, and opened there before anywhere else in the world due to their love of it. And the influence it had on their media cannot be understated, but I'll talk about that later on in the influence section. Now, the film was critically panned by the critics.
So, the critics, who I would think for the most part are educated, intelligent people, couldn't see that this was more a piece of art than it was a movie.
Now, one of the main criticisms was the weird appearance of rock star David Bowie, which I will agree with them. Watching it at the time, it's basically nonsensical. But the movie was liked by British critics, which makes me a bit proud, and the film would get mixed reviews from cast and even the fans.
I thought that one of the great things about Twin Peaks, for me, was that it was frightening and odd and exhilarating and all those things without being violent, without showing violence like that. it was all there, but it was underneath and understood, and I think, and the thing that I had a hard time with in the film was that it was very, very much up front.
I think is being more accepted now, and as you know, something people appreciate, but you know, that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee.
I'm not going to go over the whole movie because it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, and there's a lot of nudity and extreme violence. But first, the movie opens and you hear that terrific score, even better than it was in the show. After the credits, we literally see a TV being smashed, which I think is telling the audience that this is a movie and that this will be nothing like the show, thus smashing the screen, smashing expectations of what to expect from the show, and immediately establishes the horror tone of the movie. We see Teresa Banks' body floating in a river. Gordon Cole requests to get Chester Desmond.
Me, Agent Chester Desmond, out in Fargo, North Dakota.
He flies in, and he meets Gordon Cole alongside Sam, who is mentioned in the pilot episode, where Gordon Cole shows Chet this.
Her name is Lil. She's my mother's sister's girl.
Federal.
Now, I think this can be interpreted in one of two ways. One is that Lynch is making fun of people for overanalyzing, which is reinforced in another scene, or he's telling us that the answers we are showing are really obvious and right in front of our faces, which the scene I mentioned also backs up. Chet talks to Sam where he mentions for the first time the Blue Rose.
A blue rose? Good. But I can't tell you about that.
Which is very important. They go to the sheriff's station where it seems to be the inverse of Twin Peaks station. Everyone's unfriendly and incompetent at their jobs. Later on they inspect the body. Now the movie is clearly inspired by another movie, that being Silence of the Lambs. Now I first noticed this in the scene where Donna meets Harold Smith, which the shot looks very similar to this shot from Silence of the Lambs. Also, the credits for Silence of the Lambs look very similar to Twin Peaks ones. Also, both follow FBI agents going to a railroad town, both similar shots of planes, both police departments are very unhelpful to the FBI, and finally the autopsy scenes both use state-of-the-art technology to gain clues. Now the movie is very unnerving and uncomfortable. The diner scene, the trailer park scene where we meet Rod. Desmond then, under the trailer park, finds a ring and is never seen again. That ring will be very important later on. We cut to Philadelphia. Now watching the movie at first is very confusing, but with the deleted scenes it makes far more sense, and this scene is one of the most important in the entire series. We see our first appearance of Cooper in the movie. He walks to Gordon and then tells him,
Gordon, it's 10:10 a.m. on February 16th. I was worried about today because of the dream I told you about.
We get this confusing moment. Cooper looks up at the security camera, then walks into the camera room, then back again, and then... The scene is very confusing as Cooper seems to be frozen in time, while Bowie is able to walk freely, which suggests some sort of alternative universe. We meet Bowie, whose name is Philip Jeffries, who says,
Cooper, meet the long-lost Philip Jeffries. You may have heard of him from the Academy.
Well, now, I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. We're going to keep her out of it.
Gordon? I know, Coop.
Who do you think this is there?
Now this part connects to the return, so I won't talk about it, about why he talks to Judy, or why he points to Cooper. Now this is where the two cuts have different variations. In the original, we see a superimposed image of a black man in a clay mask, whose name in the credits is the Jumping Man. And he continues to talk, where we see the man from another place next to Bob, and they mention this word Garmonbozia, which is corn which we saw in the first series with the grandma and her child, who are also there, and we see Bob and the man walk into the red room. We also hear Philip say we live inside a dream, which will be important later, and David has commented on it later on after the film but before the return.
Fire, walk with me. We live inside a dream.
We live inside a dream.
Yeah, that's a very Lynchian.
No, it's sort of the truth. It's sort of the truth. And one day we wake up and realize that it was a dream, and we realize who we truly are. It's a glorious day when that happens.
We get confirmation that Chester has gone missing, and that Philip was in fact there. Coop then investigates the place where Desmond went missing, where we learn the reason he went missing. Now in the new cut, we see Philip enter, and we can hear his dialogue more clearly. He says the same stuff, but we can clearly see he says this.
I found something in Seattle at Judy's. And then there they were. And they sat quietly for hours. And I followed.
Which is very important for the return. We learn that Philip has in some way travelled from 2 years ago, and is then transported back to 2 years ago. We see Chet's car, it says Let's Rock, and Cooper speaks to Diane about the Blue Rose case. We cut to a year later with Laura Palmer, who walks to school with Donna, who is now played by actress Mariah Kelly. I've said that wrong, definitely. Everything seems normal, we meet characters we know, and then Laura does cocaine in the toilet. Now the one thing that should have been here, in my opinion, is Audrey, as there are some clear parallels between them, especially in this movie. We see Laura with Bobby, and we see their relationship.
Where were you? I'm not kidding around. Who are you with?
Get lost, Bobby.
Oh, yeah? You'll be calling soon and maybe I won't be around.
Laura's in her house with Donna, where we clearly see Donna loves James, and Laura mentions how about the angels wouldn't help you when you die. Now the parallels with Audrey and Laura, Audrey smokes in front of everyone, Laura hides it and does it in her own privacy. In reality, Audrey is a virgin, Laura isn't. One acts bad in front of everyone, one acts sweet. One Cooper pursues, one he doesn't, and there's a big one in the return. Laura looks at her diary only to find out a page has been torn out. She then runs to Howard Smith's, where she panics at him. She tells him Bob's real, which he doesn't believe, and she says she's been abused since she was 12 years old. And then she seems to be possessed when she says this.
Walk with me.
Cooper speaks to Albert about the next victim, where he seems to predict Laura's death, where Albert makes fun of him. Laura is working at the Meals on Wheels program, where she's loading up her car. She sees Miss Tremond and her grandson, where they give her a painting, and they then warn her of...
He's going toward the hiding place. He's under the fan now.
She runs home, and then we get this very tense scene with Laura, who eventually goes upstairs. The tone is perfect, and once she reaches her room, she runs out and cries. And when she looks up, it's her dad. Now, it's very obvious that in this movie, Lynch wanted to make sure you knew Leland knew full well what he was doing, and that Bob represented his darker side. As the young boy says, the man behind the mask. This is only reinforced in one of the film's more tense scenes, the dinner scene, where we get to see what Leland is really like, abusive. The scene is perfect, and this is where we truly see how much of a great actress Cheryl Lee is.
No, don't do that. She doesn't like that.
How do you know what she likes?
Laura has a dream. She goes into the painting she was given, and then we transition into the Red Room, where Cooper is talking to the man from another place. He asks Cooper if he knows who he is. Cooper shakes his head. He then says to Cooper,
I am the arm.
which means he is in fact the severed arm of Mike, which we will literally see at the end of the movie. The arm then shows Cooper the ring, which he mentioned in the Philip Jeffries scene. There is also a convenience store scene which is incredibly unnerving and surreal, and seems like Bob was teaming up with the arm in some way. Cooper looks at the camera and says,
Don't take the ring, Laura. Don't take the ring.
Laura wakes up to find Annie beside her, who says to her,
My name is Annie. I've been with Dale and Laura. The good Dale is in the lodge, and he can't leave. Write it in your diary.
For a long time, no itch. But at the same time, there's a thing in Fire Walk with Me where Laura is in her bed and she's visited by Annie, and Annie says, I'm in the Black Lodge with the good Dale, and write it in your diary. And that little bit right there held a kind of a string of dreams.
What prompted the moment when you and Mark actually sat down and started writing again?
Mark invited me to lunch at Musso and Frank, and
this is a vital scene for the movie and the series, and confirms some sort of time travel, and is a very good use of Annie's character, who seemed to have little to no importance up until this scene. Laura looked, and then she sees the ring, and then looks at her in the painting. This is one of the most unique and strange sequences, but effective in conveying the horror of the movie. Laura goes to the roadhouse where she encounters the log lady. Laura then, in the roadhouse alongside Donna, cries. Then meet guys. The next scenes I cannot show you on YouTube due to their nudity, but essentially there's a lot of hugging, kissing, and even Donna getting naked, which infuriates Laura, as Laura doesn't want Donna to end up like her. Laura and Leland go to meet Sarah for breakfast, in which we get definitely the most intense scene in the whole entire film. The terrific score, the incredible acting from all three actors, the dread on Shirley's face, and the sound of the car are all top notch. We cut to Leland, remembering sleeping with Teresa Banks a year ago. He asks her about those two other girls. Leland goes to meet the other girls, and then sees it's Laura and Ronette. He then leaves. We go to Laura and Bobby in the woods, drunk, where they encounter somebody, where Bobby eventually does this. She laughs like nothing happened. We cut to Sarah, who is drugged. We then see she sees the white horse again. We cut to Bob entering Laura's room. He begins to rape her. She questions who he is until she sees her dad's face. We cut to the next day. Laura is distraught and cries all throughout her school day. She refuses sex with Bobby. He then realises she used him to get cocaine. The night of her murder, she looks at a painting in her room where the angel fades out of the frame. She goes to meet James, where they make out and argue with each other, where she hugs him and then runs away into the forest to meet Jock, Leo and Ronette. We see Laura with her hands bent back, and Leland appears at the window. Outside the cabin, Leland attacks Jack, which contradicts the original series. Leo flees, and then Leland takes both Laura and Ronette to the train car while Mike runs after them. And what's key here is that they show it as Leland and not Bob, showing who the real monster is. Laura sees the ring on the floor, and Mike saves Ronette. And then we finally see Laura's death. We see him float the body into the river. He then walks to the Black Lodge where he meets both Mike and the arm, where his body is, I guess, shown to them. The arm then touches Mike where his arm would be and says,
I want all mine garmentos here.
We learn what Garmin Bozia is. To me it seems as though they are the audience, and that the thing we never saw in the show was how did Laura die, and them asking for pain and sorrow is the audience wanting to see Laura's death, as that's the whole point of the movie. Though I don't believe the TV theory, but I'll talk about that later. We get a really creepy close shot up of a monkey and Laura's body bag from the pilot episode. We go to the Red Room. Laura looks up at Dale. She then looks and sees the angels were there and that she is finally free from her dad, her struggles, and most importantly Bob. The movie ends, Laura smiling and crying as she is now free and Dale comforts her. Now, the movie is considered by many to be the true ending of the series, and what Dale does in the end changes that. And there we go. That's how the series would stay for 25 years. The show would live on through its influences, whether in Japan, influence shows in the West like Sopranos, X-Files and Stranger Things, and would influence other media such as video games massively. And I would consider this movie one of the best horrors of the 90s.